Psalms 50 says, "The mighty God, even the Lord, has spoken and called the earth from the rising of the sun unto the going down thereof. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shines. Or God shall come and shall not keep silence. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous round about him. He shall call to the heavens from above, and to the earth, that he may judge his people. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens shall declare his righteousness, for God is judge himself. Hear, O my people, and I will speak, O Israel. I will testify for you. I am God, even your God. I will not reprove you for your sacrifices or burnt offerings to have to be continually before me. I will take no bullock out of your house, nor he-goats out of your folds. For every beast of the field is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I don't have to tell you, because the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. I will eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats? No. Offer unto God thanksgiving, and pay your vows unto the Most High. Call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver you. And you will praise and glorify me when I do. See, God don't need nothing from us. Not one dang thing. He needs nothing. He's not affected by anything. It's not about serving God. It's about having his nature. It's about having his character. If you look at Wonder Woman, Zeus made man in his image, meaning they had the capacity to love, to feel, to be glad, to be sad, to be generous, kind, gentle, or rough, crude, evil. They were made in his image. We all are made in the image of love. But we can choose not to love, and we can choose to be afraid and hate. It's up to us. Love doesn't need anything. Love gives all the time. Do you want to be a loving person today? Or do you want to be someone who's continuously in want because you continuously are fighting down people for stuff? Whether it's acceptance, whether it is status in life or money, what you think is security. Let me tell you something. If you're fighting today in this economic time for bread and food, let me let you know. If you lend out a hand and you help someone today, your bread will always be short tomorrow. Try to give something instead of just getting something. I know you may not be in the position where you think you can give something, but just reach out to someone, whether they're in need, and give them something. Trust me, it's a principle of life. Good will come back to you. Whatever you give out comes back. And the more you give is the more you receive to give again. It is better to give than to receive. In this life, it's better to love than to hate. To be bold and courageous, to do the things that are seen in this world as weak, instead of bowing like a coward to fear. Like Steve Trevor said, it's better to do something and stay and follow your conscience and do the best you can than to do nothing at all. If you die doing the best you can, it always beats back saying what could have been. You lived it safe. What could have been. Do I make sense? I hope I do. We're going to do some Easter eggs, but this is a shout out to the very first Wonder Woman comic. So the movie actually paid tribute to the very first Wonder Woman comics. And the very first Wonder Woman comic, by the way, titled Wonder Woman, is not what you're seeing in front of you. Before that, very first Wonder Woman comic, the summer of 1942, we had a series of Wonder Woman issues that came out in other comics. Wonder Woman first appeared in All-Star Comics number 8, and then she appeared in and headlined Sensation Comics number 1. She then went on to have her own Wonder Woman comic. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to start off with Wonder Woman in All-Star Comics #1, but I'm going to kind of parallel it with the very first Wonder Woman comic, the summer of 1942. Then I'm going to go into Sensation Comics afterwards, okay? And basically, it's one continuous story we're going to be actually flowing on. So let's go. So Wonder Woman first appeared in All-Star Comics #1. It was the last comic in that issue, the last comic. And from the get-go, Wonder Woman started off, and the attributes that she was there to do were played out, and she really did pull from the Greek mythos. But before I even go into that, I wanted to just tell you that the movie paid tribute to the very first Wonder Woman comic by the action that Wonder Woman actually took. You can see she's jumping through the air here. If you look at the very last scene, and of course I'm dealing with spoilers. For those of you who don't know spoilers, let me just say it right now. Spoilers. So if you don't want to watch this video because you haven't seen Wonder Woman yet, look at the title, it says spoilers, and on top of that, I'm going into spoilers, okay? But if you look at the very last scene where Wonder Woman leaps off of the balcony into the city, you will notice that she adopts this posture. And this is a posture you've seen throughout Wonder Woman, actually. And this is a very, very popular posture. This is where she leaps through the air, and one leg is high up and the other leg is down below. We learn that she can float on air later on in the New 52 near the Rebirth series. But for now, she also can jump very far. And here you see her leaping up in the air. This is the posture you've seen Gal Gadot do at the end of the Wonder Woman movie. So shout out to the very first Wonder Woman appearance, the debut in All-Star Comics #8. The other thing I wanted to say is that the attributes that they're about to describe Wonder Woman with in the introduction of Wonder Woman are also the attributes we saw in Batman v Superman, her very first debut, not in her own movie, but in Batman v Superman, the movie, which is like a prequel to the Justice League, which interestingly enough, All-Star Comics is actually highlighting. They were called the Justice Society of America at the time. So let's just get into Wonder Woman's attributes here and how much she was very similar. She actually displayed these attributes in Batman v Superman. So it says here that Wonder Woman is as lovely as Aphrodite. She is very beautiful, and you can see that. She's as wise as Athena. We knew she was wise as Athena in Batman v Superman because she was able to figure out that Bruce Wayne was trying to steal information from Lex Luthor, and so she was able to up him by 1. She obviously was observing him all the time. She has the speed of Mercury, which is very true. She's very, very fast. You saw when Doomsday smashed her against, he hit her back with his Doomsday Ray, and she hit against this sort of concrete something, and she just dashed off at Doomsday, and she has super speed, right? She also has the strength of Hercules, no doubt about that. So therefore, she is known as Wonder Woman. But who she is and when she came, nobody knows, which is why she's called a Wonder Woman. Okay? Now, the story begins with Steve Trevor crashing, and it says here, to begin the strange history of Wonder Woman, let us go out over the sea and follow in the wake of a plane, entirely out of gasoline. As we watch it flounders helplessly in the sky, finally crashes on the shores of an uncharted isle. So we know from the movie that the island, Paradise Island as they would call it, and also Themyscira, is an uncharted isle outside of the world. It said Zeus kept them outside of the world. Now that little mythology is a little bit different to what happened in the actual comic, but the point is they were outside of the world. And what's really cool about Themyscira, which I will say right now, there's that big old tower. That's the Tower of Themyscira. Remember that? Themyscira is kind of hilly. So I noticed that they modeled Themyscira after the Themyscira in the very first issue of Wonder Woman. But let's just continue. It's not called Themyscira then. It was called Paradise Island, as you will see. And finally crashes on the shores of an uncharted island set in the midst of a vast expanse of ocean. Okay? And here's what happened afterwards. Bursting from the surrounding foliage, 2 beautiful figures raced towards the wrecked plane. Look, princess, a strange plane. So somebody's a princess, and it has to be her. Well, what are we waiting for? Come on, let's see if anyone is hurt. Princess, it's... And then Diana says, a man on Paradise Island. Quick, let's get him to the hospital. Okay? So, really awesome. They actually have a man on Paradise Island. Okay, before I get to this Wonder Woman issue, I want to just continue with this a little bit. Okay, so people say a man, and they carry this man to a doctor. Okay, at the hospital. Is he all right? Will he live? I don't know. He's had a concussion. We won't know anything for days, Diana. What the Queen will do with him, he cannot be moved. Okay, so in this case, Diana picks up a full-grown man. She's really strong, as if he was a child. Let's see. Enters in the street of a city. We saw the Themyscira city. All right, everybody's saying, a man, a man, a man. Anyway, the important thing is that we don't know Diana's name yet. They don't just say who Diana's name is, but it'll come. So the princess says, Mother. The doctor says, the Queen. Now remember, Steve Trevor went and saw the doctor as Diana did as well in the movie. I heard that there was a man here. I couldn't believe it. Who is he? So they find out what his name is, and this is very interesting how this actually comes. You remember Steve Trevor was actually interrogated by the Amazons with the lasso of truth. Well, here's a parallel again. Okay. It says here, Captain Steve Trevor, U.S. Army Intelligence Service. We can't let him die. See that he gets the best attention. Keep his eyes covered so that if he should awake, he will see nothing. So here, you hear Captain Steve Trevor say, Captain Steve Trevor, U.S. U.S. Army Intelligence. He says intelligence and working with the British intelligence. Remember that from the movie? So this kind of is, again, a tribute to this initial early issue of Wonder Woman. And as you can see here, we have the Queen. And the Queen's name is Hippolyte or Hippolyta. So that's really cool. We have Hippolyta here. Alright. Hippolyta, sorry. So anyway, moving on. In Wonder Woman, the very first issue of Wonder Woman, I need to give you a little bit more backstory. And I like how they flushed this out the following year, okay? In July. The very first issue of Wonder Woman, which is this one, okay? She has her own comic, man. They're called DC Comics, a Superman publication, which is really cool. And it's a 64-page issue containing all new, never before published adventures of Wonder Woman, which is pretty cool. And in this issue, they actually go behind the scenes a little bit more. They delve a little bit more into the character. So they just recap a little bit. Wonder Woman's story is the history of her race. It reaches far back into the golden age when proud and beautiful women, stronger than men, ruled Amazonia and worshipped ardently the immortal Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Now, in the movie, we didn't hear too much about Aphrodite. Out of that legendary glory which present-day Amazons still preserve in secret comes Wonder Woman, the most powerful, captivating girl of modern times, the fearless maiden who gave up her heritage of peace and happiness to help America fight evil and aggression. Okay? So you hear what her story is, her motives. And in the movie, Diana goes to fight the war because, again, she doesn't want evil and oppression. And she's like, it's our sacred duty to defend the world, right? Captain Steve Trevor, a young officer in the Army Intelligence Service, crashes while flying over lonely seas and disappears in a smother of mist and foam. So he hits into the water here, which is what we saw in Wonder Woman, right? Okay. And then eventually he's rescued by Wonder Woman. So this is kind of a little bit of... But what I really want to go into is the Greek mythology. So what happens here in this Wonder Woman clip is they're recapping the Greek mythology. Okay? Because Dr. Hellis, he finds this script here, old script. He says, old parchment, manuscript. The language looks like ancient Greek. I will show it to Dr. Hellis at Smithsonian Institute. Dr. Hellis looks at it and he says, this is the history of the Amazons. Now, this is something that Hippolyta tells Diana along with, I realize, Antiope. People don't know that the narration is between Antiope and also Hippolyta was talking to young Diana. Okay? But here's the interesting thing. It says this. The planet Earth begins the ancient script, is ruled by rival gods, Ares, god of war, and Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. My men shall rule the world with the sword. My women shall conquer men with love. Okay? Now, if you think about it, the movie actually covers that, where Zeus brings about the Amazons, who are to help men with love. Okay? So this kind of makes sense. Now, Hippolyta is telling the story to Diana, so maybe the true story is this. But anyway, let's just go on. The swordsmen of Ares, now called Mars, slew their weaker brothers and plundered them. So Ares people, Ares the god of war, he actually ended up having these people kill other people. Okay? It could have been other gods. Now, remember, in the original story that Hippolyta is telling and Antiope is telling to Diana, he says that Ares killed out the other gods who were trying to defend the Amazons, that Zeus told him to defend the Amazons. Women were sold as slaves. They were cheaper than cattle. What say Hero? I'll trade these 5 beautiful slave girls for that goat. Bah, I would have taken a dozen women to get my goat. Okay, so here are these people. I guess these are Ares people. But Aphrodite shaped her own hands a race of superior women stronger than men. So apparently they put women in bondage. I will breathe life into these women and the power of love. They shall be called Amazons. Aphrodite gave her own magic girdle to the Amazon queen. Now we know Zeus created them in the actual myth that we were talking about, but it's all good. Aphrodite gave her own magic girdle to the Amazon queen. So long as your leader wears this magic girdle, you Amazons will be unconquerable. And then for the Amazons built a magnificent city, Amazonia, and easily defeated all armies which attacked them. Stupid men, you have no chance against us, while I wear Aphrodite's magic girdle. And Mars, also known as Ares, was furiously angry at Aphrodite, but she laughed in his face. You cheated me. You made Amazon women stronger than men. But I will conquer your Amazons and punish them. That for your threats. She did snap snap for your threats. Mars inspired Hercules, or Ares inspired Hercules, the strongest man in the world, to make war with the Amazons. I'll take this magic girdle from Hippolyte, the Amazon queen, and bring her woman back in chains. Hercules, leading a mighty army to Amazonia, challenged the queen to personal combat. Come forward, Hippolyta, if you dare to fight the strongest man in the world. I dare to fight any man. Hercules' club snapped the queen's puny sword like a dry stick, leaving her unarmed. Surrender or die. But the magic girdle gave her strength. No mere man can conquer an Amazon. Hercules, defeated, resorted to treachery. Promise to return home and leave us in peace, and I will spare your life. I promise. I will make love to her and steal the magic girdle. Hercules planned to capture the Amazons by treachery. I invite you beautiful Amazons to a banquet tonight in our tents to seal a pact of eternal friendship. We will come. Hercules used woman's own weapon against Queen Hippolyta. He made love to her. Thou art beautiful as Aphrodite, and thou art strong as Ares. Without this magic girdle, I could never have conquered you. Let me hold thy girdle, O queen. Just to touch it will send my spirit soaring, since you have worn it. I ought not, but I cannot resist you. I have the magic girdle. The Amazons are helpless. Seize them. Hercules has betrayed me. To arms, Amazons. Fight, sisters. Aphrodite aid us. They fought furiously, but without the magic girdle they were defeated. Bind the prisoners. We will loot the city. The Greeks, fearing the strength of their captors, put the Amazons in heavy chains. So the Amazons, that's how the Amazons got in bondage. This was not explained in the story that Hippolyta was telling to Diana. She just said that men overcame the Amazons, and eventually the Amazons, Hippolyta and Antiope, they were able to fight back and defeat them. But here's the particulars possibly. Loaded with fetters, beaten and tormented by their captors, the Amazons were in despair. The captive queen prayed to Aphrodite for help. Oh, divine goddess, forgive my sin. Give us strength to break our chains and recover the magic girdle. The goddess Aphrodite answered Hippolyta's prayer. You may break your chains, but you must wear these wristbands to always teach you the folly of submitting to men's domination. We will obey, goddess. The Amazons conquered their captors. Aphrodite is with us. Hola! And Queen Hippolyta recovered the magic girdle. Quickly arming themselves, the Amazons boarded the Greek ships, and guided by Aphrodite, the Amazons sailed far seas to their promised haven of peace and protection. On Paradise Island, they built a splendid city of which no man may enter, a paradise for women only. Again, you see the towers there, right? So, what's interesting is Zeus ends up coming and assisting them, and defeats Ares, and the Amazons have this island that Zeus created according to the lore. So it's a little bit different how they do it here than with the Aphrodite thing, which is all good. And there's just one more thing here. So it says here later on, I can fly Captain Trevor to America, Mother, because they had to return Captain Trevor, but they did not want to return him alone in the movie because, of course, he was a man. He appeared on the island. As you heard here, they were not supposed to allow men on the island. So what happens in the end is Diana proposes to return with Captain Trevor, but Hippolyta does not want that. No, if you leave Paradise Island, you lose your birthright, she tells Diana. Okay, that's Hippolyta. In the meantime, unseen by human eyes, Mars, the god of war, or Ares, taunts Aphrodite. Ho ho, the whole world is at war. I rule the earth. Your rule will end when America wins, and America will win. I will send an Amazon to help her. So then Aphrodite speaks to Hippolyta, okay, and talks about sending back Steve Trevor with an Amazon. And basically, what do we know about Steve Trevor? Well, like you said, he's an intelligence officer. You know that already, okay? And he ends up being a spy. And the thing about Steve Trevor, the backstory of what happened to him, is not quite the same as the backstory he confesses to Hippolyta under the chains, but it has some commonalities, such as there's a bombing of the Allies' base. Just the difference is Steve Trevor, he was kidnapped, and his plane was used to bomb the Allies' base instead of Steve Trevor getting away and bombing the Ottoman Empire place where they were trying to make these chemical weapons. So it's a little bit different before he crashes on the island, but it still has a bombing going on. And in this particular story, Steve Trevor, as we know, he comes to Paradise Island. Like I said before, they realize that they have to get him back. Okay? So it's like, Mother, he must be taken back to America to finish the job he started. But the mother, again, is against that. All right? But she does go talk to Aphrodite and Athena, which I will not talk about here. But eventually, Wonder Woman, who Hippolyta does not want to go, she secretly goes in and she wins a contest to become the Amazon to carry back Steve. In the movie, it's not the same thing. In the movie, she just sneaks off and takes the armor and stuff in the tower. But this is the same costuming, the same uniform that they pay tribute back to the original Wonder Woman script with. The story continues in Sensation Comics, the very first Sensation Comics. And this is what makes it so awesome, because we just started off with All-Star Comics. I just paralleled it with the very first Wonder Woman comic. And then I talk about the second comic, which really is Sensation Comics. So Sensation Comics came out for the All-Star Comics in January 1st of 1942. Wonder Woman comic came after that. But in this comic, what's cool is that Wonder Woman, you see, returning Steve Trevor back to America. Or in this case, in the movie, returning back to the war. Okay, and Ares is happy there's a war going on, right? So we see that Ares is in this story. Ares did kill his fellow gods. We see that Ares is the guy behind the Amazons actually being tricked by mankind and being put into slavery by mankind. That's kind of filling in the blacks for what happened in the movie. And then they fought back with the aid of Aphrodite with the Golden Girl story. I don't know if that's actually what will happen in the movie, but Zeus came to the aid of the Amazons and the other gods. I guess the other gods might have been Aphrodite was in there and Athena, who knows. But what we do know is Ares killed off some of the gods one by one. Didn't say all of the gods, even though I think Hippolyta said all of the gods. I'm not too sure. Zeus eventually ends up dying, though, and not before he zaps Ares down to the earth with a thunderbolt, and then he uses the last of his energy to hide the Amazons as well as create this weapon for them to kill Ares. Now, you see here that, again, Steve Trevor is called a U.S. Army intelligence officer, and he's trying to stop the bomber from raining death on the American army camp. Okay, in the movie, he's trying to stop a war. It's World War I. Really cool. In this same comic, we find out that Diana she becomes Diana Prince because there's actually a nurse whose name is Diana Prince, and Diana wants to stay closer to Steve in the comic. But she exchanges her identity for a lady who's also named Diana, but she wants to leave the job and go to marry someone in another place. So, Diana in the comic actually exchanges glasses, and she becomes a nurse. So her hidden identity here is Diana Prince. Alright, so it's a little bit different how she becomes Diana Prince. But what's cool about it is people say that, when Diana put on the glasses, it's a shoot back to Superman 1978. No, it's actually a shoot back to the original Wonder Woman comic, where the original Wonder Woman, including Linda Carter, by the way, Linda Carter also took on glasses. She wasn't a nurse. She was a military officer. I think she started off as a nurse, actually, and then it became a military officer, like the comic. Where this pays tribute is, you see her wear the glasses, but she doesn't wear it for very long. She destroys the glasses and she just moves on with that. But what's interesting, which we will get to in a minute, is that Diana doesn't only do that. There's another thing she does that's very similar. The movie explores, but they look at it in a different kind of way. But I thought it was interesting. And Diana takes on that. The other thing that happens is that in this same comic, she and Steve Trevor, they end up bursting into the people who are doing the bombings and stuff, and they are actually preparing poison gas. So Steve Trevor and Diana, they put on gas masks and they wreak havoc in the place. They just blow up all the gas in the area, and then the guy who kind of looks like Ludendorff here, he actually ignites a bomb. He says, "Oh, if you're gonna let us die, I'll die, but you will die with me." And he blows up the whole joint. And this reminds me of when they actually blow up the places where they're making gas, the labs and everything, and Dr. Poison's fleeing away from there. And anyway, let's move on a little bit. So that was in Sensation Comics number 1. Sensation Comics number 2 continues that story, and we find out that the person behind all these poison gas and stuff that's actually attacking the Allies and so on, or the American army at least, is actually Dr. Poison. Dr. Poison. So Dr. Poison says, "Remove their gags. I yearn to hear Captain Trevor talk. For this pleasure I spare his life. How big-hearted of you, but you'll be disappointed with my conversation, Dr. Poison." And there's Dr. Poison right there. And you know what's so crazy? Dr. Poison was the very first villain of Wonder Woman. So they went all the way back, giving tribute to the very first villain of Wonder Woman. And it's the first time ever that Wonder Woman actually, in the Wonder Woman movie, you actually have Dr. Poison. So it took this long for Dr. Poison to get her shine. And not only is she relevant, but she was relevant to World War I more than World War II. So that was really cool. But it was just interesting to see that Dr. Poison was behind it. And Dr. Poison, of course, is threatening Steve Trevor, etc. And if you do remember, Dr. Poison was calling out Steve Trevor when he stole the notes that she had to make this very deadly gas. There was a lot of chemical warfare in World War I. Everybody was guilty of that. But what's interesting is that Dr. Poison, she had this special gas in the Wonder Woman movie, which would actually go through gas masks and stuff. So nothing could actually protect the gas. In this comic, however, she made reverso gas. And that was to really just confuse the armies. And she was making a whole ton of that. And she was successful in deploying it and testing it out on the armies. And they were confounded. She gives back Steve Trevor. Steve Trevor is all in captivity all that time. And she's going to kill Steve Trevor when Wonder Woman shows up. Now, the interesting thing about this comic is that we find out that Dr. Poison is not Dr. Van Gunther, which later on in the comics of Wonder Woman is Dr. Poison, but she's actually Dr. Moreau. So they really give credit in the Wonder Woman movie we see to the very first Wonder Woman villain, which is Dr. Moreau. And there she is right there. She was wearing a mask, and she was wearing these costuming. And if you look at Dr. Moreau, or as they say, Dr. Varro, you have Dr. Vargo's notebook. Anyway, if you look at the very first Wonder Woman Dr. Moreau movie, you will see that, not animated, live action of course, you will see that Dr. Moreau actually resembles so much this Dr. Moreau, which is really cool. Really, really cool. And she was even wearing a mask. So that in this comic here, which is still Sensation Comics number 2, Dr. Moreau is actually, she's called Princess Moreau. She's actually a princess. And she shoots at Wonder Woman and stuff and all of that. But in the end, she's put into prison by Etta Candy. Yes, Etta Candy was actually in the early Wonder Woman comics, the very first Sensation comic. She pops up. And so Etta Candy's also here. And her backstory is pretty interesting as well, because she likes candy and stuff. That's not so in Etta Candy. In the movie, actually, was Steve Trevor's secretary. But we'll get to secretaries in a minute, because this story continues on with Sensation Comics number 3. And in Sensation Comics number 3, Steve Trevor is no longer in the hospital, and he has to leave. And Diana, she's very sorry, so she wants to be Steve Trevor's secretary. The funny thing is, it's a running joke in Wonder Woman, the movie, where actually she finds out what a secretary is, and she says that's slavery. And then later on in that movie, Steve Trevor is saying that Diana is his secretary, and she's a very good secretary, because she was debunking the Sumerian and Ottoman, the Turkish, Sumerian and Turkish language that Dr. Moreau wrote in. And here, Steve Trevor offers her to be a secretary. So you're a good stenographer. Colonel Darnell, my chief, needs a new secretary. Oh, Steve, get me that position, please. So she doesn't become Steve's secretary in this comic, because Steve actually has a secretary. He says, I have a girl, Leela Brown. She's a wonderful secretary. Been with me for years. So it's not Etta Candy. It's Leela Brown who's her secretary. In the end, she is tested out with Colonel Darnell. And what happens is she passes the test. Diana becomes Colonel's secretary. Is this the surgeon? Colonel Darnell speaking. I would like to have Nurse Diana Prince assigned to me as special duty as my secretary and assistant. She ends up being his secretary, and that helps her to be close to Steve, which she wanted to be in the comic. Interestingly enough, Linda Carter was actually Steve Trevor's secretary in the television series on ABC, the very first series. She also started off as a nurse, which was very interesting. But interestingly enough, Etta Candy was not a secretary of Steve until much later on in later issues. But I'm just showing you the tribute to the very first issues of Wonder Woman. Literally, we're talking about the first 3 issues in Sensation Comics, the debut of Wonder Woman in All-Star Comics, and the very first issue of Wonder Woman in her own comic, Wonder Woman, of DC Comics. And I thought I would share this with you guys, because I just thought it was just so cool how they paid so much homage to the very first Wonder Woman movie. And by the way, which I find really, really awesome, is the fact that both Sensation Comics and the debut of Wonder Woman in All-Star Comics have her as she's sort of leaping through the air here. I think they're both really awesome in doing that, because they both show her almost flying, and that's basically what we see at the end of Wonder Woman, where we see Diana Prince leaping off the balcony as Wonder Woman and flying through the air. So I thought this was really awesome that we see it 2 times here. In this case, she's leaping off the ground. Before that, she was leaping in the air. One knee up in the air and the hands moving across the sides. Really awesome. Of course, you see her using her bracelets and this as well. And the Linda Carter version, she actually attacked some thugs, which actually corresponds with the Wonder Woman issue in Sensation Comics number 1, which was January of 1942. So Wonder Woman comic actually came out June to July of 1942, which was after Sensation Comics. But I thought I would share all of this with you guys, because people are talking about there's not enough Easter eggs in Wonder Woman. Well, I just started with Sensation Comics to show you some of the Easter eggs. Of course, we also have Easter eggs for other movies besides Indiana Jones. We have Little Mermaid. We have Superman 1978. We have a ton of movies, actually. We have also Linda Carter's TV, CBS TV of Wonder Woman that they pulled from. So there's a lot of stuff going on in that Wonder Woman movie. A lot of Easter eggs. And then we haven't talked about George Perez's run. We haven't talked about the New 52 run and stuff that was pulled straight out of the New 52 animated series. You got Wonder Woman Justice League. You got Wonder Woman 2009, where we actually have certain scripts, certain words and dialogue that pull straight out of Wonder Woman 2009. I mean, the amount of Easter eggs in this movie is ridiculous. But I just wanted to give you the source material, just like how, oh, I haven't done that. Okay, we will. What you guys can do is go check out Man of Steel Answers. Check that out, and go look at the tribute that Man of Steel gives to the very first Superman comic, Superman Action Comics #1. It's really awesome how they go through this particular scene in there, which is actually a reflection of exactly what happened in Superman Action Comics #1. So there's a whole ton of stuff I can tell you guys about how much these movies actually echo the comics, and that's why Zack Snyder said of Man of Steel that it really does go according to canon. But if you're looking at the movies like Superman 1978, Superman 1982, 83, and 84, no, it's not exactly like that. Even though they pull a lot of stuff out of Superman 1978, 1982, 1983, and 1984, which is really awesome. So anyway, I thought I would share that with you guys. I hope you guys have a great one. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Have a good one, guys.